Nuclear warfare agreements. Nuclear warfare's impact on the lives of people today is the equivalent of 50 years ago. This idea of force and appeasement, connected through the secrets kept by CIA and government, largely represent the democracy that is a lie in which we live in. In my opinion, this is a lie because most of the ways they would advertise democracy was through propaganda. Well, technically speaking, if we have these liberal values that we are made up to pursue, why did we do what we did with the proxy wars, throwing Korea and Vietnam into these crazy wars, when really the issue was with the Soviet Union? The Soviet Union looks bad to us because we see propaganda like this, and, we see things like this, and they show that America was not 100% good with being the little guy. These wars, these little wars making up to the Cold War, was just a lot of pointless build-up of scaredness, and it definitely threw America into this power crazy mode because they forgot pretty much about all these places that wanted to join the democracy for the trueness and the liberal ways of it. But really deep down, this liberal values that we had really only shown through to people in America. Like, we had adopted, Cuba and Turkey and all these places, but they threw them under the bus. Cuba, they went against everything because they forgot. They were so busy with other stuff. They didn't look back and see, okay, well, Cuba has all these, all these sense of stability. They had their whole little island thing. And Soviet Union, they were there to help them. They would financially, they would take them under their wing. And America really represented Cuba in a bad way. They made them look like communists, and they gave them mustaches and beards, and they didn't give them the sense of respect that they deserved. And through liberal, it's, equality, and anybody can be part of it. Well, really, they just rejected it, and as soon as, Cuba had all these bombs and weapons, they were so fast to throw Turkey under the bus, give them back to the Soviets, so they didn't get blown up. Well, in my opinion, I believe, by doing that, they were just pretty much saying, here, it's not a big deal, take Turkey, because we need to protect what we have here. Well, Turkey was willing 100% to be democratic. So I don't get why they would go into, a place so close to where the power is coming from and just throw something under the bus like that just to save something they got rid of, like Cuba. That just shows me right now that this whole democracy, it could be real, but it is spun off to be something very different. In this picture, it's, I think it's Korea and Vietnam, and then this guy, he's probably Stalin or somebody like that, but showing that they're just, waiting. They're waiting for their share to fit in, and as soon as they're waiting, it's just, they're getting taken advantage of, and they're getting in trouble, when really it's the two oppositions here that are fighting over these two little countries that it's just really not part of what they were fighting for. The second part of this is this hydrogen bomb. This was created by America, and they were proud of this. They would just flash that in Stalin's face because they had that and they didn't. But really, it was 1 year after they even created it, Soviets could replicate it exactly and make a non-failing space missile. Right here it shows that they had anything they really wanted. They have this huge piece of land. They have all these people just working for them, creating things, and America making this bomb who can blow up, half the world. But they can shoot something into space and do that within a year. It just shows that the power is so great. But America thinks that they have all this power right now, and they didn't realize, to the extent where okay, well, we'll make a space shuttle, but it'll blow up just like that, I don't know. It just shows me 100% that America, they were poking at something they couldn't handle. It was like David and Goliath. Like, you know, America is this little guy poking at this giant, and this giant they could have blown him up easily. You know, they could have destroyed America, but they didn't, because America didn't faze them. You know, the Soviets, they were like ultimate, and really they didn't give a shit. They didn't care. So as soon as America got their head screwed on right, they started noticing, okay, well, I watched this video on YouTube, and it's about like appeasement, an analogy of appeasement, and what it's really talking about was how a lot of the time, as soon as America realizes, oh my god, we got ourselves in this huge mess, we should go try to like fix this nuclear warfare, because America would never blow it up, because if they did, it's one of those mutually assured destruction things. They're just going to blow up their land, they're going to blow up Soviet's land, and they're going to end up blowing up every ability they have to even have a democracy, so really there would be no sense to it. So as soon as they start really trying to surrender to the Soviets didn't really care that much. This compromise was very much just based on America saying, okay, like, we give up, like, I guess, you know, you do you, we'll do us, and hopefully things will fall through, because it got to the point where it wasn't really America's problem, and there was no real war between these two places, so everything that kind of happened was just a sense of power, a fight for that. So, anyways, this whole propaganda, this is shown as like, you know, people in Soviet, and they're all dying and whatever, but really deep down, like, if we went to the Soviet Union, they were terrified of America. They were terrified of North America. They were terrified of all these places, you know, especially in the eastern half of it. They didn't know what to expect. So if we went in, they would probably have been threatened, and they wouldn't have known how to even react to it, because this has been their government for the past 100 years. So it's like anything. If they had come into America and said communism, and they had their Stalin fists up and whatever, like, it really would have made everybody here terrified, because communism is bad. Communism is a bad thing. Well, there, you have to think democracy, that's their spear, you know? It's just two things that can't be depicted, because they're both just fighting for something they both don't understand, you know? Neither of them understand each other's sides. So, really, all this was just a fight over whose was better, because in the end, it didn't lead to anything. This Cold War didn't lead to an outbreak, and it's not even reflected very much by people, because they look at the Vietnam War, it's not even on Google, because it's such a embarrassment to America. You know, they don't know why they're fighting. They don't even know why they were there. And Korea and North Korea and South Korea, like North Korea, their dictator, you know, he's a crazy guy, and like South Korea, they're fine, but yep, you know, all these places, they really run off of these. If there was an outbreak and North Korea got out, like, we would be impacted by Koreans everywhere. You know, like, we have to maintain, like, containment. We have to keep that, because if we don't, we're just going to lead into overpopulation and diversity to the extreme, and I think that this whole democracy diversity thing, it'll get to the point where they don't want immigrants, and will become similar to communism. It's just a couple topics away from each other. Democracy, communism, it's one and the same, in my opinion. This agreement, Test-Ban Treaty, this really is a period of like detente, and it's thawing off, but really this whole fallback plan is just a very simple view of the war right now, and after all this 50-year brawl, Soviets, they still have their power, you know? If there was another war right now, and this had to all come together, the Soviets would still beat us, because we don't have any more land than them, and, you know, the ways are still practiced in some places, because that's what they're used to, and a lot of people are okay with that. They like that, you know? And really, this hesitation of like having the war, there was none from the Soviet side. They weren't scared to blow us up. They didn't care. They've lasted this whole war with Germany during, the 40s, they lasted. World War II, industrialization, they've lasted a lot more than what we've lasted, because this is generally a new land, So this whole fear of getting bombed from Russia, like getting your nuclear war hot things that's supposed to protect you, like, that's just a sense to show how Western society is not 100% told everything they need to know. It's just secrets beyond belief, and a lot of the time we think we know what we're doing, but we don't, because many people didn't know about John F. Kennedy's incorporation with Cuba. They didn't know about any of that. They just knew that, it was getting taken care of. Nobody knew that there was any bombs right there, and they still probably don't. So I think that this whole sense of protection and stability maintained these sense of happy minds, but in a couple years there will be another war, because the economy has to have them booms and busts to make us keep getting money and using money, and especially with the military being so large in the United States, they need that. They need that to run their economy. So who knows? Before we know it, this whole North America, Canada, everybody will all be impacted by this one way or another. And nuclear bombs, they're still out there. There was this SALT treaty where it says everybody had to not create any more nuclear bombs. But there was no treaty saying they could not use their nuclear bombs. It's just saying that every place that has them must keep them. That's it. It's not saying you have to get rid of them. It's not saying you have to do anything. So places like North Korea, Japan, here, everywhere, they all have them. So, it only takes like 3 nuclear bombs to blow up the whole world. So it wouldn't surprise me. But that's just the way the human race is, and we'll blow each other up eventually, because that's how our natural brains run. Anyways, I think I've shown you all my cartoon things. I don't know if I showed you that one, but there's USA tackling the Koreans, and if that doesn't scare you from Korea, I don't know. I know what else would. Alright, well, hopefully I answered the question, because I kind of forgot what the question was, so.